Why I did a Memento Mori maternity shoot. This is the Catholic version of this video. I have a secular one that Catholics or other Christians may rather share with their friends. So I had a Memento Mori themed maternity shoot. Most people are in white gowns and sunflower fields, and sometimes they have rainbows photoshopped in. No, I did mine out, dressed in black, in the snow, with the dead trees, carrying a skull. So was all this to try to be edgy? Well, I'm kind of effortlessly controversial, but that's beside the point. I actually had quite a few reasons for creating this. The biggest, to share with others. After all, I'm just some random pregnant chick who would care to see these pictures otherwise. I'm actually on a bit of a mission. A Remember Your Death photo shoot that's supposed to celebrate new life all seems rather counterintuitive. I've never seen something like this done before, likely because it does seem so out of place. I had several reasons for this shoot, and of course, as with everything I do, it was dripping with symbolism. And I also wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring awareness to miscarriage. This is a high-risk pregnancy, and I actually wrote my miscarriage scripts back when I was pregnant, but before I knew I was pregnant, and on the weekend that I had visited a friend to bury her miscarried child. So, some coincidences all around. I meant to have all this put out together and released about a month ago, but there were some snafus with the original shoot and getting the pictures back and then having to reshoot. So that's why I'm cutting it so close to Holy Week when I wanted to have these released closer to the start of Lent. Unfortunately, since it took so long to get the original photos back from the original shoot, we had to rush and reshoot what we could to get certain shots. So we have a little bit of a hodgepodge of photos, but I was determined to make it work. So let's start with what inspired this shoot. I'm going to tell you my daughter's story. Almost 2 years ago, due to chronic health issues that escalated, I was told by one of my specialists that if I became pregnant again, I would likely die. This devastated me and my husband, and we went through all the accompanying emotions of grief by this news. Of course, we're Catholic, so we practice NFP, so we're aware of my fertility, and we quickly figured out that we were in the lucky 1% of NFP conceptions. I actually worked through the math and timetable, and there was really so little explanation for my becoming pregnant that this child defied all the odds. I had actually began experiencing some sudden health issues a few days prior to finding out I was pregnant, which were worrisome enough to actually alter my daily life. My husband and I became very concerned over these sudden new issues, and then I found out I was pregnant. And remember, I had been told that I would likely die if I became pregnant again. No, I'm not going to get into my personal health issues. It's no one else's business. I'm just stating the bare minimum of facts for this video. My husband and I were, of course, pretty worried, but I told myself, everything will be okay. Everything's fine. We'll be okay. Then 2 days after finding out I was pregnant, I had an episode where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it was honestly really scary. I was sort of hit in the face with my own mortality. I thought about what I would do if this were my last day on earth. So I did my hair. I put on a nice dress in case I suddenly dropped. I took photos with my children and we told them I was pregnant. Then I wrote to them a bunch of various things. I contacted a priest friend of mine and filled him in so that if something did happen to me, he could fill in all of our mutual friends. And I waited. I waited for another episode. I spent the day praying and loving on my children, aware of every minute, feeling like a sword was hanging over me. My husband was beside himself, not wanting to leave my side. That night, we mused about how I'd spend my last night of my life if I had the chance to choose, and I realized it was honestly just laying in bed with him, watching something, and I fell asleep holding his hand. He did not sleep that night. I woke up the next day. It was a Monday. I could get in touch with various doctors who soothed my concerns and rushed appointments with me in order to set up preventative measures to work towards a safe pregnancy for me and the baby. I was told by my OB that when that doctor told me I would likely die if I became pregnant again, it was scare tactics and had little merit even with my health issues. And while yes, certain measures needed to be taken now in order to make sure certain things didn't happen to me, that they were quite sure that they'd be able to help me through it. I was sent to specific specialists at Hopkins who assured me that she had not lost an expectant mother yet. So all of this obviously soothed my and my husband's concerns. I still kept having worrisome health episodes, but they were getting to be less often and less severe. So because I had already released a miscarriage video and I wanted to encourage women to announce their pregnancies early in order to celebrate them and have a strong support system if they lost their babies, I announced I was pregnant at 9 weeks along. I made a cute little video and announced to my friends and family, and I posted it, and it was all great. And then, of course, with my luck, 2 hours after announcing it to everyone I was pregnant, I was sitting at my table and I looked down and saw I was covered in blood. And my life became slow motion. I never had a miscarriage before, and nothing like this had happened to me before. I grabbed my phone, made a quick post saying, "Pray now," in my Catholic group, and I flew up the stairs, threw my bedroom door open, and my husband was sitting in our bed, working on his computer. He immediately started panicking, seeing my demeanor, asking what was wrong, and I couldn't find words. I just screamed and gestured to the blood. He jumped up and said we should get to the ER. It was 10 o'clock at night. We had 4 little children we had to throw into our vehicle and made the 40-minute drive to the ER. My 6-year-old son held my hand and prayed every word of the rosary with me. I was texting every priest I was friendly with, asking for masses. I texted a chat group, asking them to inform our friends and pray, and I believe there was an impromptu Zoom set up for me where they were praying the rosary as I was, and as emergency masses were being said for us. I could not fathom that I hadn't had a miscarriage. Most of me had kind of accepted that I had because of the amount of blood. So there I sat in the ER. My brother and parents met us there and took my children back home. They made me wait in the ER for over 3 hours, despite there being no one ahead of me. Something about waiting to get a sonogram machine to be brought from one place to another. So here I sat in the ER. Sure, I had just lost my baby, getting congratulatory message after congratulatory message from people who had just seen my pregnancy announcement. And I didn't have the heart to suddenly damper their spirits with responding that I think I had just miscarried that baby. So I just said thank you. When I finally got back to check to see if they could find a heartbeat, I lay down and they, of course, turned the monitor away from me. My husband stood up and moved so he could see and just held my hand as he stared intently at the monitor, and I just stared at his face. I knew that I'd know as soon as he saw by the look on his face. And it seemed like the longest time of my life. And then I saw it. The micro expression of relief. And he looked at me and nodded and said, "Here's a heartbeat." The technician turned the monitor towards me, and there I could see this perfectly formed little baby wiggling like crazy with a strong heartbeat, but sitting dry. They moved me to another room to wait for the doctor to come talk to me about all of this. I had such hope, but immediately the conversation turned to how likely it was that I would still lose this baby, and with all things considered. She told me there was nothing I could do, and the rest of the conversation was then about comforting me when it would happen, when I would lose the baby, what I should do, who I should call, and I was sent home with no hope. I called my OB office the next day, went through the motions. They hooked me up with high-risk OB for my case. So all the medical interventions and specialists up to that point, and I still required more. I would continue going until my inevitable miscarriage of this baby. I was told that bed rest was my best shot, and even then, it would not stop me miscarrying. There were so many mornings I laid in bed in horrible pain, contracting, sure that I was miscarrying. So many mornings of, this is it, where I felt like a fool for having any hope that I could do anything to prevent my child from dying. And then morning after morning, pain after pain, it ended. I would contract and pray, and then nothing would happen. I didn't miscarry after any one of those times. And week after week passed, and I still didn't lose her. At 14 weeks, I saw her on the monitor and immediately knew she was a girl. At 18 weeks, I felt her for the first time. Shortly after, her being a girl was confirmed, and I started calling her Prelia, which is Latin for warrior. She had overcome the odds in her conception. She had overcome the odds when I lost so much blood. She had overcome the odds morning after morning when I thought I was losing her. She overcame the odds when she didn't have any issues they expected her to have, and she formed naturally and perfectly. She is a Prelia. Twice I asked my high-risk OB and my Hopkins specialist if she would ever be out of the woods, and I was point blank told, no, not until she's born. I'm still 7 weeks out, and with how things are going, I don't think she will last that long, but if I go into premature labor, she's got a fighting chance, which something tells me she will also overcome too. I believe the prayer of my friends and family, the masses, and the rosary saved her. This is the rosary I prayed with in the car on the way to the ER, the one I clutched in the hospital, and the one that's in my chute. So this maternity shoot was extremely emotional for me. The first shoot took place when I was just over 6 months pregnant, so Prelia would have had even less of a fighting chance if I went into preterm labor. So getting dressed, making myself presentable, going out in the snow was very physically challenging for me. Don't worry, I was confident it was safe for me to do. I would not be able to do it now, a month and a half later, though. My reasons for having this shoot are many. Firstly, this pregnancy began with the prospect of my own death looming over me. And then, when the threat seemed to pass, I started living with the threat of my child's death looming over me every day, like a sword about to just drop. I wanted this shoot and these images to embody that awareness. We all die, right? Life is difficult, and it can be cold, much like trudging through the snow. Life is unpredictable, much like not knowing what could be lurking beyond the trees that you see. But although life can be painful and hard, it can still be beautiful. We can have the darkness looming over us, but we can still fight it with light. The snow combats that darkness too, showing that while it can be unpleasant, it can still be beautiful. With the landscape, whether snow or dead leaves, I wanted to show that we not only shouldn't shy away from the harsh realities that surround us, but embrace them and create something defiantly beautiful. You can be constantly surrounded by the reminder of pain and death, but you can take hope with you, a light. And while you cannot escape pain and fear, you can choose how to face it. A Memento Mori photo shoot seems so ironic, but is it really? We all must pass from one plane of existence to the next. This life this child knows currently will end. She will endure suffering in order to pass from her life now into her new life. People don't realize that to be born is painful. It's confusing and scary and extremely traumatic. Babies do not know what is happening to them or what is on the other side of that sudden confusing experience. We lose our life in the womb to be born into a new life, and we have to lose that life in order to be born into eternal life. So birth and death are so similar. That's why I have embraced the skull, the symbol of death. That's why I hold my Memento Mori rosary to my stomach, looking down to acknowledge that life and death are intertwined, and we are the masters of neither. In one of the shots, I'm holding a light on one side of my baby and a skull on the other, and I wanted to embody a recognition that while death is looming, you can still stand in defiance of it. Death might claim our bodies, but it doesn't have the final say. No. There's life beyond death. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? For we have victory over death through Jesus Christ. It's crazy to think how much I love this child and how much I wish to hold her. And she doesn't know any of that. She hears my voice, but she still doesn't fully understand who I am. Parents have a bit of a heads up before their children are born, and that means I will know the day she will suffer to be born into this life, while she still won't know. God gives us glimpses into His parenthood when we embrace our own parenthood. To touch on the symbolism, I wanted to do a type of stylized shoot that reflected Gothic and medieval themes. So having symbols associated with my name, Regina Lux, lended to this. Obviously, the crown and the various light sources help to communicate who I am as it translates to Queen of Light. And my whole vocation is about shedding light and truth on various subjects. But these symbols also work overtime to convey other things. You see, while I have the crown, I'm still not sovereign over certain things. No one is sovereign over God, Veritas, or death. And I wanted to create a visual acknowledgement of that. Jesus Christ is the light that we take with us into the dark, into the harsh realities of life. This light is our hope. So while I've been aware any day I could lose this baby, I still held to hope. The darkness cannot take away our hope. We have to cast our hope aside in order for despair to win. Much like if we cast our faith in Christ aside, temptation, sin, and the devil can reach us. I also wanted to shed some light on the pain of pregnancy, childbirth, and miscarriage. Before I had to stop making videos due to this pregnancy, I made a miscarriage video with Faith and Reason Studios, which you can find on their YouTube channel. Miscarriage is still such a difficult topic for women to address openly, especially with how preborn life and children are seen as a commodity in our culture of death. Oftentimes, parents feel as if their pain isn't valid and they try to shove it down. I created that video before my pregnancy became a high-risk one, and I've never miscarried before. This Memento Mori shoot was kind of my way of expressing how I faced that possible outcome, how mothers face the mortality of their children, how heavy that is, and how dark that reality is. So many women face that reality head on, but oftentimes alone. We believe every life is sacred. We know every life is sacred. And when you're a woman who faces death in such a way, it changes you. And so many women hide that change. So many women don't know how to express what they faced. And I tried with these. And I want to help pave the way for other women too as well. Mary lost Jesus. She has shared that pain. But she has, like we one day will, shared in the splendor of our children when we are reborn into our new lives after our labor on earth. And that is why I did a Memento Mori Maternity photo shoot.